Christmas then had to fit in with the idea of the midwinter festival, Saturnalia. That's how you get people joining your new religion, is to make it fit in with the things that they like most. But the idea of a person personifying Christmas, well, this starts to come about very early on in about the 1400s. So the very first mention of a man symbolising Christmas dates to a carol from that time in which Sir Christmas, with an E between the T and the M, tells listeners that the baby Jesus has been born, and he exhorts Christians to make good cheer and be right merry. So, Merry Christmas. This continued for quite a long time. I'm sure many of you know about the playwright Ben Jonson, a contemporary of Shakespeare. And in 1616, he was commissioned to write a festive play for the royal court, and it was entitled Christmas His Masque, as in Masque. And one of the characters is a personification of Christmas. He's known both as Old Christmas and Old Gregory Christmas. And he's described as being dressed in hose and long stockings, which kind of makes me laugh, the idea of Father Christmas appearing a bit like someone out of Blackadder. And he has he's got a long thin beard, but he's got lots of children, and they have very seasonally appropriate names. So one of his children's called Mince Pie. If anyone's pregnant here, don't take any of these, okay, as your inspiration. One is called Carol, it's fair enough. One is called Wassail. One is called Mumming, and one is called New Year's Gift. So all of these kind of ideas that start to come into Ben Jonson's play were things that, of course, had been fermenting for a long time. Jonson was just putting them in because they were things that he knew about. Just as with A Christmas Carol, Charles Dickens would look back at what had happened in Georgian Christmases to bring them into Scrooge's past. But then, as you may know, the Puritans banned almost everything that we associate with Christmas. Now, I don't suppose there's any Puritans here, but I've just come back from Washington, D.C., and you still have to be a little bit careful there. As one of my students said to me a few years ago, I was teaching art history, and I talked about the Bloomsbury Group, and they are, as you're probably aware, they've got a quite gregarious, fluid love lives. And I remember one of my very young, kind of 20-year-old students go, and I said, "Oh, are you all right?" And he said, "You all forget that we're still Puritans." I'm very mindful of that every time I go out to the States. So the Puritans banned Christmas. By that, Christmas itself was strictly observed as a religious day. Now, Mass was expected. Everyone had to go to Mass, but they were not allowed to sing, even in church. People were not allowed to have any foods associated with Christmas. Drinking obviously was banned anyway. And anything, decorating your homes, all those kind of things, was seen as absolutely forbidden. And there were soldiers patrolling to make sure that people weren't walking down the street with anything approximating Christmas festive food. Mince pies were banned. Do you know they were blasphemous? Because they were meant to be the cradle of the baby Jesus, and the pastry top. You'd have the mince meat filling, which of course was meat initially, and then there would be a little baby made out of pastry that would be sitting on the top of the mince pies. This was deeply blasphemous. Sometimes you'll still apparently see mince pies with, instead of the pastry crust, there'll be a cross at the top in pastry, which also dates back to this time. I don't know if any of you know the Museum of the Home in London. It used to be called the Jeffrey Museum. And they do a wonderful thing. Every year they would decorate each of the rooms that represent a different era for Christmas. It's absolutely beautiful. And I remember going one year being really impressed by it, because in the Civil War time there was a tiny piece of holly that was kind of sneaked behind a picture. And it was said, had they been discovered, they would have been in big trouble with the authorities. So all of these things were kind of really led to the banning of Christmas. Now, do we have any Scots here?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what was Scotland like what was Christmas like in Scotland? Did you grow up in Scotland?
Me?
Yeah.
Yes, I did. New